So we're on day 5. It's early, as usual. I totally see why people just buy turnkey systems now. There's a certain gratification in building your own stuff. Really enjoy doing that. But we're also on day 5, and I have at least half the wiring of this panel to go yet. But we're committed. Going to bed last night, I realized that I still have like 50%, of the wiring going to the door panel. Not like I closed out yesterday thinking I had everything going over. I still have to run the 2 feeds from the relays over to the element lights, so you can actually see when the element's firing, and also off the switch over to the relays. I have my temp probes I gotta move over, and then also there is the current clamp. Really, it's like the little ferrule that has to come all the way in and go around the black L1 leg of the power in feed. So definitely more than I thought had to still go over. But the good news is I can just jump right into wiring today, and it's just going to be just straight wiring. Hopefully I think that I'm done with all my fab work. So we're going to get into this. Here we go. It's just my wire holder, all it's for is just keep stuff clean. So I'm going to get the rest of these wires over the panel so I can just focus on this side. Notice I had a lot of the same colors and stuff, so everything that I have here to try to keep it organized and so I don't confuse myself, I'm keeping a label on it. It's like I have pumps, key out, green LED, main power, key hot. Also, when I get to this side, I'm just routing and hooking up, and hopefully there's no confusion. I don't have to meter anything up because that could get confusing really quick. Plus, since a lot of this stuff is common, it's not even going to meter out. So it's essential to keep track of all your wires and which one is which if you don't have different colors. And even if you do have different colors, you should definitely have something, at the very least a good diagram to show you what everything is. So I unfortunately have to undo these relays again to add these in. Not looking forward to messing with this 10 gauge again, so it didn't go the best yesterday, but not much of a choice. These are 220 volt LEDs, so in order to have those light up basically when the element is firing, which is when this relay is on, and then the SSR is actually like kicking voltage through, be on the output side of these. So I can either tag this at the outlet side or right off of the relays. I've chosen to go off the relays. And looking at this, it would also work really well to go off the outlets because you can actually put a wire on each side of the lug on there. But I'm going to go off the relays just because then I can keep the wires in the box more. This is 16 gauge tied in with 10 gauge, which is not ideal. In order to make a good contact, you have like the lugs that come down, and it's like a little clamp. To get this to stay in there and actually hold well, I found it actually works good just to go ahead and wrap this. These lugs are built for much larger cables, so they're really large enough to accommodate this. And this 16 gauge is not a lot. And again, I want to be tight on everything. Other options, you could put other DIN rails, connectors or anything in there to be able to pass it through, but I don't have space for that. So I wrap this around and then make sure it's in. If there's any doubt, I could always solder that too, but they're going in really well and holding tight, so not ideal at all. With all these since I'm rolling this 10 gauge around, I'm coming back in, checking that all these
plugs and the outlets are nice and tight. Checking all these outputs should be nice and tight. Labeling. Go ahead and get the wire for my relays ready to go. For the coils, anyways, the trigger coils. I switched colors on this. I'm going to go with this yellow and blue. That's 16 gauge. I'm just flipping a coil over. It's not a big deal current-wise. It's going to be a lot more pliable to route up here. So. Redo my 2 DC wires, also going to be this lower gauge. Get those routed. SSRs have a positive and negative, and then there's a positive and negative off the PIDs. We'll make sure to match that up, but essentially in this case, my thought is that the darker color will be the light to black, which would be the positive, so that's how I'll remember it. Obviously when I wire it up on this side too, I'll know.
They're labeled right on the SSR.
I'm just kind of getting all this stuff hooked together, cut myself enough length that I know it's going to route on this side, and then I'll start dressing it into the box, and as before, kind of like make my little harness that's going to have to close with the door in here. Looking at this, I have one more wire that I have to bundle up with this to go down here, which I'll probably come in and then break out and ride the front here, or maybe ride the back, I guess. But I need to get the amp feed, so the ferrule for the amp meter in here. I'm gonna prep that right now and get that going. Prep this transformer. That looks like I'm gonna want these 2 legs.
Small, man.
It's actually pretty easy to solder. A lot of people kind of worry about it, but it's not that difficult. It's important to know you're not trying to like melt the solder onto the wire, onto the object. You try to heat the object up so that the solder will flow into it. You know, and then with like either a flux object or rosin core solder, you get it hot. You notice how I kind of put it on the opposite side, and when it started to take it, it just sucks it in. It's just like sweating pipe too. Same thing. You get the pipe hot and hit it with the solder, and it'll actually suck it in. Get this on your head, kind of cheat and hold it and wrap it around. These are actually really small pins, like way smaller than I thought they were going to end up being. So this isn't as good of a wrap, but it'll hold still. Notice I get it hot. Takes it from the other side. You know, notice it's like, it's not dull, it's shiny, which is what you want. If it's dull, it means you have a cold solder. That's on there. I'm gonna run my heat shrink tube right up to it because I want I don't want that touching metal. I'll probably put like a dab of hot glue and all this stuff too, because it's just gonna kind of like sit there. You know, I'll probably zip tie it on the main leg too, but up in my table and my hand. Voila. So this piece too. This stuff's kind of nice. Push it and it opens up. Just little wire mesh stuff. There's all kinds of kits and stuff out there, but I just get this stuff online and it works. It just kind of protects it. And this is really just a visual thing for me. I was going to put this on the DC cords too for the SSRs originally, and I don't think I really need to. You see how this is all frayed here. They do make like little burning kits that actually sears this stuff off, and it looks really good. It works really nice also is just to put a little bit of heat shrink over the whole piece. And it'll melt. But that's what I wanted. Just, you know, nice clean leg. I try to put heat shrink on these to protect them, which is what I usually do with a wire if it's unused or something. It's not working well, so I'm going to put a little dab of hot glue, I think, just to cover these real quick, and definitely on these pins. Man, that baby's gonna be tight. And looking over here, I have to get this. I want to take it tight to the box, probably about the middle, if not closer to the back, just like I did on this side with stickies to bring it up. It keeps it back and away from all this stuff. Plus it's a good pad. But then also I have to make my route up tight so that I can still access this mounting screw over here. Because that's literally how tight everything is in here. So this is what I was referring to. You see down there in the far corner, you can see the towel underneath. That's my mounting hole. Now, I only got to get through there just once with a screw. It'll go. But it's important for me to, you see how I'm kind of routing that cable up the side, just like I did on that side. Now granted that's only one cable, but you see there's my transformer for my current. My black leg will be right there, so just gotta, when I go into that, I'll just loop it through there. But quite a bit of wiring right here. I have both pieces coming off the outlet, so 2 legs off of each outlet. My 2 coil wires, and then also my transformer 2-wire. So a lot going on, but again, I wanted to make this turn just right so I can still, not only is it clean, but I can access that hole, and then also too my temp probes, you know, are coming through right here too. So a lot happening. All right, I got my DC cable ran for my SSRs. It's all routed down. You see I have my temp probes here going up. Those are going to be last, I think, because I don't want to trim the pigtails down to length, just because I don't really feel like re-terminating them. So I'll probably just make like a loop over here or something. But next step, this is all the cable that's got to go to the panel. And I'm going to look at my diagram again, because I've said that before and I was wrong, but I think I got it this time, which is a lot. I could just do one harness and come over and break out, but I think I'm going to separate this into like two legs coming up. Like one leg will be the piece that's going to feed kind of the top and have to head that way right away, and then a piece that's going to go down and hit switches and stuff over here, or LEDs or whatever, and then most likely just come right onto the panel here and start routing. I know exactly what that's going to look like, but that'll be the next thing I kind of figure out. But it's coming together nicely. I think as I get onto this panel, this will all be cleaned up and mostly done, and I can get some video and photos of it. Alright, I have my 2 harnesses kind of coming out of the box and flowing into the panel. By attaching it as far as I could into the panel here, which is right up by this LED, that helps me clear this lip and the hinge and everything. And I did do my 2 harnesses. I like that, plus it gives it a little bit more flexibility because there's less wires that tied together. This final mount point down here before it goes out, this is a loose zip tie, so it's just kind of there to hold it in place, but it's not tight. And looking at it, I don't want to chop that, but you see here it's should lay down just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and start populating this stuff onto the panel. I'll probably film this once I get everything off of here populated of where it needs to go, and then basically all this rat's nest is kind of cleaned up. Then I will go through and start running all my internal circuits that have to happen in here. There we go. This LED, start getting wires dropped off of this as quick as possible. Checking labels, oil LED. Ooh, that's not the right one. That's hot liquor tank LED. Crap. Check again. Hot liquor tank LED. Definitely that one. I'll come back, but I actually got to jump out of this on my LED too. Well, it's not going to film all that. That was a ton of stuff. Definitely ran into some issues. Just little mistakes on my part, not necessarily an issue with the design or anything like that. I haven't ran the element wires to the relays yet. I don't really want to deal with this just yet. But I did get both pump wires in
I messed up with my high current 12 gauge L1 black feed. Because I went right to my pump switch, which in thinking that, I mean, yeah, it would work, but I wanted to take that through the EPO to be able to kill those devices, and then the high current side of that would come down and feed my two pump switches, and then the low current would come off and start tying in all my low circuits and LEDs and stuff that required 110. But that is fixed now. You know, I did run into quite a few wires that I had in the wrong bundle coming off my two harnesses, so I just kind of left that open now. You know, mistakes were made. So in doing some of this, I did run the one leg of my timer circuit already, just because I was already kind of running things through here. I think next I'm going to go ahead and I did run my two DC wires for my SSR. The key switch is wired up. That was a big one. So main power. This is actually main power in, key on, power out, feeds the LED, and then turns and feeds back in and hits my main power relay to power everything. This is the other half, the other leg, so the L2 red leg that'll give me power up the LED, showing that I have the 220 volt power on. And then I also need that to jump over here to my volt amp meter to read the correct voltage. So I'm going to keep at, probably tie this in and potentially start wiring in my volt amp meter. So I still need to take my 110 volt hot lead and power everything. I need to get my neutral through to everything, and also need to get my elements wired on there. After that, I still have my temp probes, but those are going to be completely last, I think, since they're so tiny. It's going to be kind of unique. So I'm going to keep at it here. It's definitely taken way more time than I thought I was going to. I guess no stranger there, kind of Murphy's Law, right? Oh, and I still need to run. This is just essentially what this timer needs to see to be able to stop and reset is just a normally closed button, and it actually resets when it sees closed and then you open it. So this is literally just going to be like probably some speaker wire or something really small, because I don't think there's really any current on there. It's probably just, it's just monitoring that ground contact, making contact within the timer. But I got to get that ran up there as well too. Oh, those are gonna suck. I figure I might as well run my neutral at the same time. And then when I put zip ties and stuff on, I'm not having to go back and redo them. All these components are all 110, so they're going to be neutral and L1 black for 110. I'm having a double and triple up here because these little things, there's not a lot of room in there for if I had to put a pair of cables in there, but I shouldn't have that issue with these terminals. So this is power in, 110 in. This is the signal, as it calls for, which from the transformer to monitor the current. And then this is the input voltage, which is, so you can see what you're feeding in. And there's really there shouldn't be a lot of current flowing on this. It's really just monitoring it. So I jumped it over here and then pulled it off of this. So it should be reading 220 to 240 volts. That should be wrapped up. Just gonna clean up this route a little bit. Okay, looking at this, let's use my handy pointer. Looking at this, so I have, again, the main power feed, hitting my switch here, feeding back off of the normally closed contact from the EPO back down to my pumps. That's already all tied in.
But also off of that, now I jump into 16 gauge and daisy chain here to here. Here's my other two leads to go ahead and continue on this. So I'm going to keep bringing this down, bringing it in. Same with, and I'll carry my neutral with it too. I think it's just going to be easy for me to just run one shot. Oh, and I got to get the neutral down here to the other side of these switches for these LEDs also. Oh, and I got all the alarm circuits to go here. I gotta jump one time with my alarm pins too. That's gonna be unpleasant. All right, here's my two harnesses coming over that will just kind of like lay flat when this door shuts. You can see just kind of go in and fold. PIDs are powered up. I have my DC voltage over. Essentially, the only thing I have left on the panel is to run my timing circuits on, right? This will be the 2-wire to do the reset. I already have the one leg of the timer circuit done, which is the common essentially that connects all the switches together. But I need to run the individual lines from each PID for high, because these high-low temp, high-low temp, high-low temp, and then timer out. All of those come down in separate lines and will hit each switch to where I can manually turn those on and off of each one, whether or not I want it to fire. And then they'll hit the switch on each. They'll hit each switch. Like I said, the output's already tied in, so once I get those couple last wires done, that will wrap up the inside of my panel. I'll continue to kind of go through and dress wires and add zip ties and stuff and clean things up that I see. I do got to run my temp probes yet too. Those will be on these 3 contacts and all 3 PIDs. But that will wrap the box up. Assuming I didn't make a mistake, and fingers crossed I didn't. You can see this got pretty busy pretty fast, and I can say too that with what I have going on in this box, going with this small of a panel, like, it works and it does fit, but man, it was work getting some of these in here in these couple spots. It was very challenging. Closing out day 5. Yes, day 5. Closing out day 5. As I just showed, this is where I ended up. So much happening in this panel. I didn't film a lot of it. It would have been extremely tedious to, and just hours and hours of editing and hours for somebody to watch, which nobody needs to watch all that. Plus, nobody wants to hear me cuss as many times as I did when I was wiring this up. So that's where I'm leaving today. We'll start again tomorrow with the bit that I have to finish up, and hopefully tomorrow's the last day. I hope I get those last couple circuits ran, the temp probes in, and the panel mounted and actually fired up. I think it's achievable, so keep watching.